Okay, today we're going to look at lesson 19, and your I can statement or learning objective is I can multiply and divide rational expressions. So we spent lesson 18 simplifying rational expressions. Today we're going to do that as well. We're just going to take it a step farther, and we're going to also do multiplication and division. So before we actually do that with our polynomials, we're going to look at multiplying and dividing fractions. Okay, because we're going to follow that same kind of process. These are rational numbers because they can be written as fractions. Okay, so when you're multiplying fractions, you go straight across. So 2 times 4 over 5 times 3, and 2 times 4 is 8. 5 times 3 is 15. You check to see if it'll simplify, and it doesn't. Okay. Now, when we're dividing, we can't just go straight across. We have to change the division to multiplication. So we keep, change, flip. And you might remember that. I know that I did this back in Algebra 1, so if you had me for Algebra 1, we did this. We practiced it a little bit. So you keep the first fraction. You change the division to multiplication, you flip the other fraction upside down, then you can go straight across with your multiplication. So 1 times 5 is 5, and 4 times 6 is 24. Okay, so just like above, we just had to change the division to multiplication first. So we're going to do that same kind of thing with our rational expressions. Now, before we actually do some examples, I just wrote a list of steps here because I know that some of us struggled with the way Math Excel wanted you to answer the questions in lesson 18. So it asked for you to simplify the expression before you found the restrictions. And I told you in the video that you need to find the restrictions first before you simplify. So I just made us a little list of steps here to help keep you on track if you're unsure what to do. So we're going to make one big fraction. If it's multiplication, you just go straight across. If it's division, you have to keep, change, flip, and then go straight across. You're going to factor, okay? You're going to make factor everything you can on the top, everything you can on the bottom. Then you're going to find your restrictions, okay, or what the x cannot be, and then you're going to simplify the expression. So just like with lesson 18, Math Excel is going to ask you for the simplified version before the restrictions. So I highly, highly recommend that you use pencil and paper and you write down your restrictions before you start simplifying. Okay, I just think that's going to be easier, and I think it's going to make it easier for you to keep track of what you're doing. Okay, here's example number 1. We have our rational expressions. We're multiplying in the middle. So since we're multiplying, I'm going to go ahead and connect it, make it one big line. So I know all this is together on the top, all this is together on the bottom. Okay, so that was step number 1. Step number 2 is to factor. Now, these are a little bit more difficult to factor than the ones that we looked at yesterday. Okay, but it's okay. You can do it the same way. You can do a guess and check. You can do a star method. You can do factor by grouping, whatever you want to do. But I think most of these are pretty easy for you to guess and check. So that's what I'm going to go with. So I know I'm going to turn the top into 2 factors. Let's see, 3x squared. So I need a 3x and an x. And then for 2, I need a 2 and a 1. And I need a 7 in the middle. So I can do some guess and check. But I know I need a 7, so 3 times 2 will give me 6. And then if I put the 1 in the middle, I add that and that'll give me 7. Okay, so there are those 2 factors. Okay, below that, that's the difference of 2 squares. So that's 3x plus 1 and 3x minus 1. All right, this one, break it up into 2 factors. Again, I need 3x and x, and this time I have a 1. So I know I'm going to have a 1 and a 1. I just have to figure out which one's going to be positive and which one's going to be negative. So I need a positive 2, so I'm going to do negative 1 and positive 3. All right? And then on the bottom, I have x and x, and I need a 2, so I have 2 and 1. And to get a positive 1, I need that to be a positive 2 and a negative 1. Okay, so that's what we did yesterday. We just have more factors this time, okay? But before we simplify, remember, we need the restrictions. So we set each of these equal to 0. And I'm going to work this one out all the way just to remind you of what we're doing, okay? But you can skip this part if you can do it in your head. So we subtract 1, have 3x equals negative 1. We divide by 3. So x cannot be negative 1/3. Okay, do the same over here, plus 1. And this time we have a positive 1 divided by 3. So x cannot be positive 1/3. And then we subtract 2. So x cannot be negative 2. And 1. Oh, sorry. So if you have if it looks like a little two-step expression or two-step equation, it's going to be the opposite of the back divided by the front. So negative 1/3, positive 1/3, negative 2, and positive 1. Okay, so there are your restrictions. Again, Math Excel is going to ask for those last, but I went ahead and found them before I simplified. Now, I'm going to go back up here and see what I can mark out. So I have a 3x plus 1 and a 3x plus 1. I have an x plus 2 on top and x plus 2 on the bottom. I have a 3x minus 1 and a 3x minus 1. So I'm left with x plus 1 over x minus 1. So there's my simplified expression. All right, so I hope you see it's very, very similar to what we were doing yesterday, just a little bit more work. Okay, here's example number 2. We're multiplying, so we can go ahead and think of it as just one big fraction, okay? And we can factor. So these should be a little bit easier to factor than the last one. So two numbers that multiply to give us 28 and add to give us 3. So that's going to be 7 and 4. And we need a positive 3, so positive 7, negative 4. All right. Straight across, take out the 5, and we've got x plus 8. On the bottom, we need numbers that factor to get, or multiply to give us negative 32 and add to give us 4. So I think that's going to be 8 and 4. So positive 8, negative 4. And on the other side, we have x plus 9. Okay. So let's see what we've got here. First, we need to find our restrictions. So x cannot equal negative 8, 4, and negative 9. So there's your restrictions that you'll need for the second part of your answer. Now let's simplify. So x plus 7, nothing matches. X minus 4 matches. X plus 8 matches. And we're left with 5 times the quantity x plus 7 on top. And then x plus 9 on the bottom. There we go. Okay, here's number 3. Again, we're just multiplying, so we can treat it all as one big fraction. Factor each set. Okay, so we have x and x. To make x squared, we need factors of 15 that add to give me negative 8. So that's going to be negative 5 and negative 3. Over here, we're going to have x times x to give us x squared. We need 3 and 1. All right, on the bottom, x squared minus 9, this is the difference of two squares, so we have x plus 3 and x minus 3. And then over here, we have x and x. To get negative 5, so we're going to have 5 and 1. We need a negative 4, so negative 5 and positive 1. Okay, first let's find our restrictions before we move on. So x cannot be negative 3, positive 3, positive 5, or negative 1. All right, let's see what we can divide out. So x minus 3 over x minus 3, x plus 3, x minus 5, x plus 1. everything divided out. So that would be just like if we had 3 divided by 3 equals 1. Everything divides out everything. So the simplified expression is just a 1. Okay, here's example number 4. This time we are dividing, so we have to do a little bit before we can just turn it into one big fraction. So remember, we are keep changing, flipping. So we keep the first as it is, change the division to multiplication, and then flip the other one. So 3 over 5x plus 15. Now, since it's multiplication, we can make one big fraction, okay? And then we can factor and go from there. So on the top, we still just have x plus 3 and then times 3. There's nothing really we can do. On the bottom, we have 2, and then I can pull out a 5 and then have x plus 3. Okay, our x plus 3's divide out. And so on top, we have a 3. On the bottom, we have 2 times 5 is 10. Okay, and that's the simplified form. And oh no, I forgot to find the restrictions. So find your factor down here. 2, we don't worry about. 5, we don't worry about. We just look at the x plus 3. So x cannot equal negative 3. Okay, so sorry about that. I'm human though, and I make mistakes. So make sure you find your restrictions before you simplify, especially because that's the way that Math Excel wants it. Okay, we're just going to do a couple more division problems, and then we'll be good to go. So again, this is division, so we can't treat it as one big fraction just yet. So we're going to keep, change, flip. So y squared minus 25 over y minus 5 times, flip this, 3y minus 15 over y plus 5. Now we can factor it. So we have y minus 5 and y plus 5. And then pull out the 3 and then have y minus 5. On the bottom, we have y minus 5 and then y plus 5. Okay, so let's see. We can eliminate the... Sorry for that weird pause. I was looking at what I have here in my answer and realized that I messed something up somewhere on my answer sheet. So sorry about that. So y minus 5 on y minus 5 divide out, y plus 5 on y plus 5 divide out. And I just realized what I did. I forgot to do the restriction, so y cannot equal positive 5 or negative 5. There we go. Now, what's left is our 3 times the quantity y minus 5. So that's our simplified expression. Okay, here's our last example. It's division, so we can't turn it into one big fraction yet. We've got to keep, change, flip. So x squared plus x over x squared minus 36. And then move that x squared plus 16x plus 60 to the top, and x squared minus 1 on the bottom. Now we can factor. So pull out the GCF, and we have x, and then x plus 1 over, see, x plus 6 and x minus 6. And then need to multiply to get 60 and add to get 16. That's going to be 6 plus 10. Or positive 6 and positive 10. And then on the bottom we have another difference of 2 squares, so x plus 1 and x minus 1. Okay, now let's find our restrictions before I forget again. So x cannot equal negative 6, positive 6, negative 1, or positive 1. Okay, and let's see what we can divide out. So we have x plus 6 and x plus 6, x plus 1 and x plus 1. And it looks like that's it. So on the top we have x times the quantity x plus 10. And on the bottom we have x minus 6 and x plus 1. Okay, so there's our simplified version, and there is our list of restrictions. Okay, so this is very similar to what we did yesterday. Again, we're just adding some extra factoring and some extra dividing out and simplifying. Remember, if you have division, you have to do keep, change, flip before you go straight across. Use these examples to do your Math Excel work. They should align very nicely. And if you have any questions or need any help, feel free to hop back in the Google Meet, send me an email, hit Ask My Instructor, whatever you need. But I would be more than happy to assist you. Have a great rest of the day.